Welcome to part 6 of the tutorial series where we're building the ticket, the adventure that comes in the PAWS manual, but we're converting it into a DAAD adventure built with DAAD Builder. The last video, part 5, was a bug fix video covering some of the problems we had with putting objects into bags and taking objects out of bags. This is going to continue from the manual itself, and was what should have been part 5 video if we hadn't had the bug fix issues. So in this one we're going to look at creating a second NPC. This one is a dog. The dog is, according to the manual here, to complicate the game a bit more. The dog simply follows the player everywhere and frightens the bird off. Now the dog should not be able to climb the tree, so we have to prevent the player from tempting the bird with a sandwich on the branch. To do so, we'll arrange for any object dropped while on the branch to fall to the ground. The player will be able to get rid of the dog by putting the lead on it and then tying the lead to the bench. In addition, the player will be able to speak to the dog, which will provide another way of getting rid of the dog by saying to it to sit or stay. So then it goes through some of the verbs and nouns that we have to create and some of the messages, but we will do that in line as we build the processes. It's got a couple of flags: the location of the dog, flag 13, flag 14, which is the status of the dog, as to whether it's free to roam or tied up, etc. So we're going to create some values for that flag. V dog free to roam for 0, V dog on lead, V tied to the bench, and V dog sitting. It'll just make it slightly easier to refer to as we're building the processes. So in the process menu we want to add a new process. So let's go over to processes, and we're going to create a new process, and we're going to just label that one, which is, we have bird NPC, this one's going to be dog NPC. It's a very short process table compared to the bird one. Let's just give that a colour. We will make that one very dark blue. Okay, so it has just one single entry in here, so we need to click to add a new entry. And this entry is going to be not same f dog location, which we won't have yet, but if I start typing f dog, we can see that doesn't exist yet. So we can just add a new flag, f dog location, and we're going to auto assign a value to that. We'll create and use. Now we want to see if the dog is at the same location as the player. We know f player exists because we've used that one fairly often, and let's just put the comments in next to here as well. Dog is not where the player is. So the next one we want to check is the dog status. So we want lower than, because it was tied to the bench, it shouldn't be able to follow the player. We haven't got a dog status, so let's create f dog status, create and use, and we now need a value. We don't have the values yet, so this one is going to be v dog tied to bench. And this time we're not going to auto assign, we're going to, actually it's required that we put a numeric value in there. So dog tied to the bench is value of 2. We're going to create and use that. We've got to check the player isn't up the tree because the dog can't follow him up the tree. And location for that is 8 up the tree. Let's just put the messages in here as well, what these do. Copy that and copy there that the player isn't up the tree. So then we want to, now if the dog is not tied to the bench and the player is not up the tree, we want the dog to follow the player. So we're going to copy FF. So we want to copy the value of the player flag, which is the player's location, to the value of the dog's location. So now they'll have the same value, which means the dog will be here, and we want to send a message saying that the dog has followed the player. Dog has followed the player, wagging his tail because it's a very friendly dog. So let's just add those messages in as well. Tell them that the dog has followed. Okay. So now in process table 4, this is the one that runs just before the game asks the player for a new input. We want to run process 8. So process 4, we're going to add a new entry at the bottom, and we're going to call process 8. Okay, that's all we do there. Then there'll be entries in process table 3 to tell the player about the dog's presence. So in process table 3, so this one is run after we've described a room, or after the interpreter has described the room. We run process 3, which can then add other information. So we now want to add some messages about the dog, and remember again, we don't put dog in here. That was an old PAWS convention. This will just change to underscores now. Okay, so we want same. Check that the dog is at the player's location. F dog location, same as F player location. We then want a message to say the dog is here. Create and use that. And then we want to check the status. So if we've tied the lead on the dog, we also need to tell the player that the dog has a lead. So it will print this message already, and then if the next part is true, so equals dog status, does it equal the dog on lead? Okay, so we haven't created that value yet. Let's create the dog on lead. We have to give that a value, and the value for dog on lead is 1. So we'll be able to use that one again in the future. We now need a message to say that the lead trails behind the dog. So let's just use those messages here as comments to tell us what this does. This one, tell player. With lead, has the dog got a lead on it? And if yes, tell player. Okay, so now I'm going to add another one beneath this. This one is going to check the dog's location is the same as the player's. same as the players. We now need to check the dog status. Okay, so we've been told the dog is here. If it's on a lead, we're going to get the message the lead trails behind the dog. If he's not on a lead, we don't get that message, but it'll drop through to the next one. So, and then check whether the dog is tied to the bench, and we'll get a different message saying the dog is here, but the dog is tied to the bench by a lead. So we need to, we probably actually could have cloned that one above. It would have been fairly similar. Equal, we want dog status again. And we want tied to the bench. I think we had that one already, didn't we? So let's go v tied. No, we didn't have that one already. V tied to bench. And we want to give that a value of 2. And we then need the message that the dog is tied to the bench by a lead. So let's copy that across. Create and use. So let's put just the one comment there. Okay. And then we have one more, which is going to be more of the same thing again. So let's clone this one. We've got dog location, same as players. This needs to be a greater than, not at greater than, we want greater, and we want dog status the dog tied to bench, which is our new one we just created. So if the value is higher than 2, we need a message that the dog, we don't, well, if it's higher than 2, the dog is tied to the bench. We need a message just saying that the dog is tied to the bench. And we need a message here. Oh, no, don't want that twice. Dog is tied to the bench, sitting quietly. Great. Okay. So we just add those 2 comments across. I'm going to have to change this comment because it's cloned. Clone the comment as well. And we want to tell the player the dog is sitting. Okay. Now, in order for the bird to be frightened away by the dog, we need an extra entry in the process 7 table, which was the table we use for the bird. I'm just going to change the colour on here. That's way too dark. I can't see that to read that. Okay. Entry must go before the entry that decides to drop the ticket and after the entry which makes the bird fly. This will ensure the bird will fly away with the ticket if it has it and leave it if it does not. So we need to find the entry where the bird decides to drop the ticket. This may not be in the order that they expect them to be in the manual because we weren't necessarily adding them in the right order. So which message number is that one? Bird has the ticket. Bird has the ticket. Bird drops the ticket, so it's message number 8. It's the entry of message number 8 we want. Okay, so it's the one at the end, so it must go before that entry and after the entries that makes the bird fly. So it needs to just go in before that one. Okay, so we now need same bird location. Is the bird location the same as the dog location? And this is only ever going to happen at the bandstand because the dog can't climb the tree and the bird flies between the tree and the bandstand. So are they at the same location? In which case we need to let so we need to let the bird location, because we know the bird was at the bandstand and the dog is going to frighten the bird to fly away, we now need to change the bird location to be the bandstand. And we need to change the flag which makes it fly away. We need to reset that to value 3 so it starts the timer all over again. Value of 3. And then is the player at the bandstand? The player is most likely going to be there at the same time as the dog is following him around, but it's probably a good double check that we're in the right place. Still got bandstand spelt wrong there from before. We need a message to say that the bird sees the dog and flutters away quickly. Okay, let's just add those comments in so we know what this code does on a later date. Okay, so the last change to the process table is to insert a sub-process which will be calling from response, which is table 5, to deal with the speech to the dog. The mechanism works very simply. If the player includes a phrase in double quotes in the input sentence, then the parser will save where it was and carry on with decoding the phrase. There is an action called PAWS which instructs PAWS to use the parser to decode the string the player has typed in. This becomes the ls. It is only sensible to do this in a sub-process, as PAWS will try to match the new ls against the rest of the table. Begin a new process table. Table 9 should be next. And we're going to label that speak to dog. Now let's give it another blue colour there. Okay, so this originally in PAWS would have said FARS. I can't remember if it's FARS or the star or just FARS. It may be just FARS. I think there was only the one. In DAAD we have a FARS 0 and a FARS 1. So if we're converting from PAWS, we always needed to say FARS 1 for speaking. We add that to the very start of the process table. And we need to give that the value of 1. We then need a message. So if FARS fails, this is a message that gets printed as a failsafe. And we get told that the dog's bright eyes stare at me with mindless love. Okay, so now we need to have messages for telling the dog to sit. So let's add a new one underneath. They always are going to have to go underneath that first FARS statement. So we want a verb of sit, which we don't have, so let's add that to the vocabulary. Add and use. I think it had numbers that we should be using up here. So sit would be 36. 6. No, okay, let's just use the default values it's suggesting to us. I think we only have to worry about the entry up here where these two need to be 37. So we come back down again. Right. So we had that sit. We need to check for 0 dog status, that the dog isn't partially tied up. Dog status, so nothing's happened to the dog so far. It hasn't got a lead tied to it, it's not tied to a bench. If so, we can set dog status set the dog status so that is now 255. We know the dog is in place, and we have the message that the dog is sitting quietly. Use, and then we're done. Okay, so let's just add the comments to there. So now we have a new one underneath that. We've done sit. We now don't want come. So this was the one it wants to be 37. Add and use. So equal dog status to dog sitting. If dog status has a value of, okay, we haven't got dog sitting yet, so we need a value dog sitting, and the value of dog sitting I think was 255. Dog sitting 255. Okay, let's go back down to those processes. So say come, check the dog status that the dog is sitting. We then want to clear that flag so it's no longer sitting. Clear dog status. We then want a message. The dog follows me wagging his tail. I'm pretty sure we've got that message already in here, so I don't need to add a new one. Trails behind. Dog follows me wagging his tail. Message 11. And then we're done. And then we have another one which is here, so I'm going to clone this. No, I'm not going to create a new one. I'm going to clone that. I'm going to take that out to be any, and this we want to be here. I need to add the word to vocabulary, and this was number 37. Add and use. And all the rest of that is the same. We clear the dog status. The dog follows wagging his tail. So let's just add that comment in. Wagging his tail, and we'll add it in on that one as well. So it's the same thing. Right. So then we want one final catch-all message if nothing has been understood, and that catch-all message is just going to be that the dog stares, right, I stare at me with mindless love, that one there. Okay, so now we need the response table, which is process 5. And that's going to allow us to insert the extra entries to control speech and the dropping of objects in the tree. First off is the entry which allows all objects dropped in the tree to fall to the ground. Now this must go between the entry which deals with putting objects in the bag and the normal drop entry. So this again is where we had that issue of drop things not being in the right location. So we need to put ours just above that one. So let's hover above, and we want this to be drop or put. They're both the same word. So we need to check if we're up the tree when we're dropping. So we want to check if we're at location up tree. We know that is location 8, not 7. And then we want Watto, and they have a very English joke next to that. Watto, old boy. Now we want to check whether the object we have is a valid object. So we want lower than, and then we want flag 51. Flag 51, reference object, and we want to check that that is valid, that it's lower than 255. We then want to go for equals, and then we want to make sure the object is carried, so we check the location of that object. So that's going to be 54 reference object location, and we want that to be carried 254. Okay, now we need a message to say that that object has fallen to the foot of the tree. A new message, create and use, and then we want to put the object, putto, in location 7 by the tree, and then we are done. Next we want to put the lead on the dog, so that's going to have to be higher up than the put or drop entry, so let's put that one right at the top. We want that to be put lead, put lead, preposition of on, put lead on noun 2 of dog, which we don't actually have yet, but we've now added that to our vocabulary. We want to check we're carrying the lead, because we're not going to be able to put lead on the dog if we're not carrying it. Lead, okay. So we're carrying the lead. We'll make sure we're at the same location as the dog, because we can't do it if we're not the same location as the dog. F dog location is at the same as F player location. If they're the same place, then we need to change the status of the dog to say he has a lead on him. F dog status, and that's the value of dog on lead. Then we need to destroy the lead, because we can't get the lead again while it's tied to the dog. Destroy the lead. Then need a message to say that the dog has allowed us to do that. And we're done. So next we have an interesting looking entry which says tie dog. So let's add that one in. above there. So we want tie dog, and we want to tie the dog, and then we want to let 34 equal 55. So the logical sentence, the noun for that currently is dog. We're going to change that noun, which is held in flag 34, to be the value of 55, or in our case, actually this is the value of the word lead, as we've auto generated that. That's now, I think, 105. Now there's our lead. Our lead is 105. So in processes, process 5, we want tie dog. We want to change that to let 34, which is the noun in the sentence. We want to change that noun to be lead. So if we say tie dog, that's going to convert it to tie lead, and so the next entry after that is now going to be tie lead. So this entry will run whether we type in tie dog or type in tie lead. So we're going to tie the lead. We're going to tie the lead with a preposition of to. Preposition of to, noun to a bench. Of bench. And actually just going to go off this one, just going to add a comment there because that will make more sense when we see it. Convert noun dog to lead. Okay, so back to tie lead. We have noun of the bench. We want to check that we're at the location where the bench is, so we at by bench. We want to check the player and the dog are in the same location. Same f dog location is the same as f player, in which case we want to check whether the dog already has a lead tied on it or not. Equal dog status. F dog status is v dog on lead. We then want to increase that status by 1, which is now the status that the dog is tied to the bench. We could also just change that to be let dog status plus 1, and then we want a message that the dog has been tied to the bench. We're just going to comment what all that code does. By the bench, dog is here. With the lead on. Nope, with the lead on. Dog is here should be that one. Dog is here. He's now tied to the bench, and we're going to tell the player he is now tied to the bench. Okay, so now we have tie not done. which I have just entered in there already. So if this fails, then we'll get to tie not done, and that'll just give us a message to say we couldn't tie the dog to the bench, or we couldn't tie the dog to whatever we're trying to tie the dog to. So now we have an untie dog, and we need to do the same as we did up here to convert the noun dog into lead. So I think that was this one here, wasn't it? Let's just clone that. And we're going to move it down underneath the tie to here. And we're going to be untie. Add word vocabulary because we don't have it yet. Add and use. And we're going to do the same thing, convert that noun into the noun for, did I say 105 for lead? I've got 104 in there. 105 for lead. So that is wrong, and will just cause a problem later on. So tie dog should be 105. And then untie dog should also be 105. So then we want the next entry under that to be untie lead, which will be the one that runs if we type in untie dog. Tie lead. We want to check that we're at the location of the bench. My bench. Check the dog status, that the dog is actually tied to the bench. EQ dog status. Dog status is value of dog tied to bench. Clear the dog status. It is now untied. Dog status, message that we've untied the dog. Untie the dog, recreate the lead that we destroyed earlier when we tied the dog up. Create the lead. Get the lead, which has just been created. Get the lead, and then we're done. We want an untie if that failed. Untie anything at all, and we want that to be a not done. Not done. And then finally we want the entries which allow us to talk to the dog, and we're also going to have a message if we try and talk to the bird instead. So let's go to the top of here, add in say dog, check we're in the same location as the dog. Player location. So the dog is here. We then want to run process 9, which deals with the things we can say to the dog. Process 9, and we're done. We then want entry below that of trying to talk to the bird. Use. And check we're at the same location as the bird. F bird location this time, not dog location. F player are the same. We want a message to say But the bird does not want to talk to us. The bird ignores me. Create and use, and then we're done. And then finally we want a catch-all. If we try saying anything to anything else, we want to try and talk to the trees or anything. We want a message to say, that's in the wrong order, just drag that down. Message to say, who should I say it to? Okay, and we're done. Okay, I'm back after a bit of a break. The original test revealed that our interpreter still had several issues which weren't working correctly. This was largely due to the fact that the interpreter had been built in pieces, and to start off with, we made several hacks really that shouldn't have been there. Gone through now and cleaned up the code for the interpreter, so it now should work much more and closely in line with the way that other DAAD interpreters work. So hopefully now, when we test what we've built so far, it should work correctly now. So press any key to continue. It says in the final test, the following input should now work in the indicator situations. They show some of the power which the phaser can provide your games with. When on the path by the park bench with the lead and the dog, try put lead on dog and tie it to the bench. So if we go west and south, and I'm going to drop the apple to make room for the lead, and we get the lead, then we go north, and here we should be able to put the lead on the dog and tie it to the bench. And that says, trustingly, the dog lets us put the lead around its neck, and I've tied the lead to the bench. And then if we untie dog, I've untied the dog from the bench, and I've now have the lead, which is working correctly. So previously, that little bit of code from PAWS where we had tie dog and it changed the flag value of the noun to be the one for lead, which then meant that tie lead ran, that wasn't running, and that was largely because we weren't properly using the flags for the vocabulary. We're now doing that. Go back to test adventure. Went up the tree with the bag, so let's drop the apple and get the bag. Now we want to go west, and we want to go west once more. We want to go up the tree. The dog doesn't follow us. The small bird has landed on the branch. The bird has a ticket in its beak. We're not really worried about that at the moment. Let's put everything in the bag and drop it. So it hasn't seemingly done the looking bag. So it did put everything into the bag, and when we dropped the bag from the branch, it has landed at the foot of the tree. For some reason it hasn't done, and we did go down, it didn't do the final and looking bag. So that's something you still need to look at, but the rest of that is working quite nicely now. I just say to the dog, sit. I can't copy and paste this because the quote marks are not going to work correctly. So we say to dog sit, the dog is now sitting quietly. If we go east, the dog has not followed us now, which is what we want. If we go west, we should be able to say, ask dog to come here. Dog follows me wagging his tail, and if we go east, the dog is following wagging his tail. So that is all working correctly now. Which brings us really to the end of this part of the tutorial. There's only one section left in the manual that we're going to look at, and that's do it yourself, where they have several exercises to try and see if you've taken on the knowledge provided by the manual so far. The section after this would have been about drawing graphics with the graphic tool in PAWS. Currently we don't have a graphics tool in DAAD Builder. Hopefully that's a feature we might be able to add in the future. So that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video.